Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 152 of the Extra Mile podcast. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. So glad you're with us today. Hope things are going well, and if you're studying for the upcoming bar exam, I know you're busy and you've got a lot going on. I just want to remind everyone that you can grab today's episode a couple of different ways. You can listen, obviously, on Apple iTunes or with iHeartRadio or by going to our website at celebrationbarreview.com and clicking on the podcast link. And you can find all of our past episodes on that link, by the way. Or if you prefer the video version of today's episode, just go to celebrationbarreview.com/152. Again, celebrationbarreview.com/152 for the video version. And on that video page, we've got the links and the show notes as well. So no matter how you're with us today, we're glad to have you here, and there's a lot going on. Now, we are just passing the 30-day mark leading up to the July 2017 bar exam. That's obviously a pretty important point. And so in today's episode, I'm going to be talking specifically about what happens at 30 days and what you should be searching for in your studies. I'm going to use one of my favorite movies. It's a Pixar classic, WALL-E, to help illustrate the point. So stick around for that. I also want to invite all of you that are with us today to check out our upcoming free live webinar, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is the new way to study and pass for the bar. And we'll be offering that information to you this Thursday, which is June 29th, live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 noon Pacific. If you're taking the bar exam in 2018, this is a great opportunity for you to find out the 4 steps that successful bar takers follow in order to pass the bar. We're going to take you step by step through everything you have to do, lay out the roadmap for you, and we're going to offer you some pretty terrific incentives to get started right away. So I hope you'll join us for that. And to do so, all you have to do is register on our website at celebrationbarreview.com. Right there on the front page, you'll see a button. Just click there and you can register and you'll be all set to go. Now, if Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern doesn't work for you, we do offer an on-demand version of the same material. Just scroll down that page a little bit further. You'll see that button. Click there and you can schedule your own showing. Everything is the same. The only difference is I'm not there to answer your live questions, but you can pop them into the chat box and they'll be emailed on to us and we'll respond that way. So no matter what works best for you, we'd love to have you with us to find out how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. So check that out. It's this Thursday, June 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Well, let's dive into today's message. We're going to talk about this 30-day mark and why it's so important and what you should be searching for as you turn the corner and head into this final stretch of your studies. As we've been saying, we're in this countdown to the upcoming bar exam, and if my hair looks a little grayer, which it is, and if I'm getting a little frazzled and my eyes look a little saggy, which they are, in part it's because I'm getting older, but it's also because we're really just about 30 days away from the exam. And 30 days away, as I've been saying today, is a seminal point. It's a pretty important tipping point in the process. Those of you who are going to be going for the upcoming exam, you are in it right now. I mean, you're definitely here. Some of you are deciding right now whether or not to wave off and wait till the next exam, and that's fine. And for the most part, people who are making that decision make it at about this point. Now, if you are watching and listening at this stage and you're getting ready for the upcoming test, I know you've got a lot to do, and I don't want to take up much more of your time today. But I do want to give you some pointers, a sense of what you're capable of and what you're capable of doing in this period of time. It's been my experience that an awful lot of people tend to start looking for quick, easy solutions. And sometimes those quick, easy solutions are out there, but sometimes the easiest solution is to do the most straightforward next steps. Things like combining the reading and listening to a lecture, or not doing quite so many questions, not trying to write so many essay questions, but to focus on quality and not on quantity. The goal here is to work on your weaknesses. Now, those are all concepts that I think make common sense. And if you follow those, and in our course, we're going to tell you those things, obviously. But if you're out there later watching or listening to this, use your common sense. It will help you a great deal. Common sense tends to be in short supply in these last 30 days. Now, some people think that the way that they're going to pass the bar exam 30 days from now is that they're going to stuff an incredible amount of material into their brain, into their head, and then they're going to spit it all back out on test day. And in that vein, I wanted to share with you, I used to talk about current movies and TV and culture, but then I realized bar takers don't get out to see movies. They don't watch TV. They're completely lost when it comes to culture. So I went back into the archives and I found a classic Pixar movie that I think I enjoyed so much, and I thought it was perfectly appropriate. And the movie was the movie called Wall-E. Remember, it was about the little robot, the little goofy robot? And I'm pretty sure most of you have heard of it, even if you didn't see it. But for those of you that weren't familiar, if you were somewhere on the planet and not heard of this movie, it was an animated movie about a robot. It was set way into the future. And this robot, Wall-E, he's kind of an ugly robot. I mean, he's cute in a sort of, if robots can be cuddly, he was cuddly. But the purpose behind Wall-E was that he was out there on a planet accumulating garbage and waste, and he stuffs it inside his, and I assumed throughout this movie, though they never were explicit, that Wall-E was a boy robot, but he stuffs it into his little compactor, in his little trash compactor, and then he spits it back out when he's all done. Now, that kind of reminded me of bar takers. You know, they take a lot of garbage, some of it clearly comes from me, and they chew it all up, and they swallow it, and they try and get it, and they try and turn it into something that then looks presentable, that's sort of packaged or presented together, and they spit it out. The problem is that if you think about good old Wall-E, is that I wouldn't really want to hold the stuff that he's spitting out of his trash compactor spot in my hands. And I'm pretty sure that the bar examiners don't feel a whole lot more excited about looking at some of the spit up that bar takers put in their answers, either paper and pencil, written or in their typing answers. Now, if you remember the movie Eve, and a few of you are saying, what's a movie? So I get it. But there's another character in the movie, Wall-E, called Eve. Remember Eve? And I won't attempt to say Eve the way any of them said it, but Eve, she was sleek. She was smooth. I kind of think she also had a tendency to blow things up if provoked. Today, we might say she was a nasty robot, okay? But in any event, Eve focused on her task differently than Wall-E. Eve looks through all this rubbish that's on this planet, and she's looking for just one specific thing. And when she finds that one specific thing, then she's got a laser beam target right to it to grab it and perform her mission. Now, it seems to me that while the movie is called Wall-E, and it's really kind of a love story between this ugly little guy robot and this pretty girl robot, I guess. I don't know what kind of robot children they'll have, but the reality is much like what I see a lot of bar takers do. I've got a lot of Wall-E bar takers. They're the ones who want to gobble everything up. They want to study everything. They want to do everything. They want to learn everything. They want to know everything. They want to accomplish and grab every morsel of information. And then having once gained it, they try to compact it. They try to put it in these little boxes. And like Wall-E, they have to go and put it on this conveyor belt that keeps all their treasures. And if you remember the movie, he's got Rubik's Cubes and things like that. I mean, so he's got this whole big, long conveyor belt. And that's what I think a lot of bar takers' brains probably would look like. The problem, of course, is that it's difficult to access all of that stuff. And if your wiring goes bad or the electricity goes down or something just short circuits you, as happens in the movie and happens in life to a lot of people, you have difficulty getting at the information that you need. Now, I think that's what happens to some bar takers. They try to put so much material into their brain at the end, and then something short circuits it. Some activity, some event, some pressure, some outside circumstance, or maybe just the anxiety of the test itself. And they can't get all the information back out and onto that conveyor belt. In other words, there's just too much there. It's been packaged too tightly. They're wound up, it's all wound up, and it's just instead spit back out to the examiners. And that's been true in virtually every bar exam that I've taught. I meet these kinds of students, and my heart goes out to them. They're working hard. They're working incredibly hard, but they actually have a lower percentage chance of success using that strategy. Now, I would rather see a bar taker that's a little bit more like Eve. And why do you think you should be more like Eve? Well, I like the idea that Eve searches through a lot of junk, a lot of garbage, and she's looking for just one thing. When Eve finds what she's looking for, she has a mission, she has a task, and she's focused on that task. Eve does not get distracted by other things. She just blows them up, which kind of appeals to me. And maybe that's the way you're feeling right now. I'm just going to blow up everything that's not bar related. But beyond that, she isn't distracted by the overall sense of what's going on around her. I mean, she's really totally focused. Now, in the case of the movie, Eve was looking, as I said, for vegetation. So what's our analog? Well, bar takers, I think, your analog to vegetation is looking for the disputes, the conflicts, certainly when you're looking at an essay question. It's the principle of law that enables or guides a multiple choice question and the proper answer. It's the approach of a particular case or a statute as applied to the facts in a performance test. Those are the skills and the things that you should be looking for. They are what you're trying to create and highlight and add to your writing and put into your multiple choice work. Now, to go back to our movie, Wall-E is not very discriminating. Wall-E just goes out, grabs everything, compacts it, takes it back, puts it in his little kit that he keeps with him, if it's interesting to him, if it's an interesting little bauble. For example, Wall-E thinks hubcaps are really exciting. And while I think hubcaps could be exciting, in general, not so much. And that's really the problem. When you're trying to gather everything, to have all of the information about the law, every morsel or scrap of law, it's hard to be discerning. You end up putting everything into your brain, or trying to, and so sometimes what you do is you pull out a hubcap on the bar exam when really what you needed was a principle of law, or a particular rationale, or a way to work through a resolution, or a conflict, or a dispute, or a question, and all you've got is a hubcap. My point really is that you can take the metaphor of these two robots and the way that they function and apply them to the way that you're studying right now with 30 days to go. If you've got a discriminating eye as you study, you're looking for material that you don't yet know, the things that you need to work on, the weak areas. That's where you should put your emphasis and your focus. And when you find it, work solidly and persistently towards that goal. Or you can take the Wall-E approach of gathering everything, operating and acting as though you are literally just a machine and you just keep gathering and gathering and gathering. Now, the interesting metamorphosis in the movie is that Wall-E turns out to have the greater, higher purpose of the two robots. And once he discovers his purpose, he stops being a hunter-gatherer and he starts to work to help Eve with what she's working on. And I think that as we see that character, we see a real development and we see something happen to him, and he's much more valuable and much more useful. And, you know, that's a great analogy for what's going on here. As the character gets more focused, he gets more interesting. He gets more helpful. He gets more productive. And so what really has to happen in your studies in these last 30 days is that you have to get more focused. You have to get more productive. You cannot go around just gathering everything that comes across your sight path, every stray twinkle or light, every bright, shiny object, everything that catches your eye is not going to be helpful at this stage. So what should you do? Pay attention to the work. Work on the things you don't know. Work specifically and productively. Narrow the list of what you're doing to the things that you need to work on each and every day. Don't try to make your studies bigger. Don't try to gather everything. Just keep working in a focused and structured way. Well, I hope that helps. And if you haven't seen the movie Wall-E, or you haven't seen it in a long time, it might be a good relaxing break from your studies for a few days. But I really hope that you'll keep it in mind and think about that as we turn into this 30-day period. We've got a lot to say in the next 30 days about your studies, and we'll be back to do that shortly. Well, that's our episode for today. I hope you enjoyed that look back at Wall-E and Eve and that great movie. It's certainly one of my favorites. Definitely saw some things about myself, and hopefully you did too, as we hit that 30-day mark leading to the exam. Now, in upcoming episodes, we're going to be balancing a little bit between some more interviews that we did with successful bar exam takers. I know that people love to hear those and participate in that. So we've got more of those episodes coming, and we're going to be talking more about some of the specific things that happen in these last 30 days as you're preparing for the bar. I do want to remind you before we sign off today that we are going to be together Thursday, June 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern for a live presentation of how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. This is a look at the new and powerful way to study and pass the bar. So I hope you'll join us for that. You can register here on the video page or by going to our homepage at celebrationbarreview.com. So until we see you either on Thursday or next week on the podcast, look forward to seeing you along the extra mile and to being on the pass list soon. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.